So I'm Justin, I'm going to play Farbeck the Dad, and I'm just going to read Casmir's part today.
Yeah.
Hi, I'm Chloe, I'm playing Alka. I'm Killian, and I'm playing Sylvester.
And I'm Bryant, and I'm doing the narration.
I'm Kieran Frederick.
I'm Scotty, I play Henrik. I'm Willie, I'm playing Tuck.
I'm Ryan, I play Patrick.
I'm Nigel, I'm playing Christoph.
I'm Alex, I'm playing Julia. I'm Susie and I'm playing Alexandra.
This is a script reading of Heretics, a film by Aidan Blake of Full Heart Films. After their village is massacred, a peasant family escapes into the woods in a desperate attempt to survive the second wave. A girl sings a melancholy tune. Exterior scene, tall grass field, daytime. A girl, Alka, 15, sits down alone in the grass as a sweet song fades into clarity.
Silver bird, when will you return? Silver bird, won't you come back home? Now and then I hear your song and follow in the dark. Silver bird, come to me, fly into my arms tonight.
A loud, high-pitched scream fills the air. Alka whips her head towards us. Scene 2, countryside, daytime. Alka, exhausted and spattered with blood, strains to carry her bag of belongings as she hurries up a steep hill. Ahead, her blood-stained father, Farbeck, in his 40s, runs with a weak, staggered breath as he carries Sylvester, 8, covered in more blood than Farbeck and Alka combined. Sylvester looks forward, lost in a cold, blank stare. Alka cries as she lags behind. She wipes tears away as she fails to keep up.
Wait, please.
Farbeck, unaware, continues up the hill.
Please, I need you.
She collapses to the ground, dropping her things. Farbeck quickly glances over his shoulder.
Alka, no!
He groans in pain as he lowers Sylvester to the ground.
Keep going, run through the trees.
Again, Farbeck strains as he gets back to his feet. Sylvester stands frozen. He stares at his blood-drenched hands.
Alka, come on, don't do this. There's no time.
Farbeck comes down to her level.
We can't do it. We can't leave her.
He grabs her by the shoulders and looks into her eyes.
Your mother is gone, and you're going to need to be strong.
I'm not strong. I can't move. It's too much.
She sees his blood-drenched shirt.
Pa, you're hurt.
Alka, listen. Your brother is going to need you. You're all he has now.
New tears form in her eyes.
What? No. What are you saying? I can't do it alone.
I'll be right behind you. Look,
He glances at Sylvester, still alone and lost in thought.
he needs you. Please, help your brother.
Alka looks down, wipes her tears and composes herself. She grabs her bag and stands up. She runs ahead, grabs Sylvester's hand, and they both head towards the tree line. Farbeck, still on the ground, lifts his shirt, revealing a severe stab wound. Someone screams in the distance. He looks back to a large smoke plume on the horizon. Faint screams and cries emit from his home in the distance. Another loud scream fills the air. He climbs to his feet and staggers towards the tree. We're now in the outside a tree line, and it's daytime. Alka and Sylvester run into the woods. The shadow of the trees wash over them. Alka pulls him along as the world slides past. He tries to stop, but her grip holds.
I'm sorry, Silver. We can't stop.
They run. Now they're in the woods later in the day. They slow their pace. Alka looks back over her shoulder through the dark maze of a forest. Something moves in the distance. A weak Farbeck stumbles into view. He staggers and grabs hold of a tree. Slowly he trudges forward, nearer and nearer. Alka watches her father. A sinking feeling sets in. Her father reaches them and collapses to the ground.
Pa!
She dives to his side.
Tell me what to do. Tell me how to help.
Alka.
He struggles to breathe as blood fills his lungs. His eyes try to close. He forces them open for a glance at her daughter. A tear rolls down her cheek. He brings his hand up to her cheek. One last look at her face. He cries with her.
I'm sorry. You're just a girl.
Papa, no.
I need to know that you'll be both okay.
I can't. I need you. Please don't go. What do I do? Where do I go?
You need to get out of here. Promise me that you'll...
Alka waits for him to finish. He doesn't finish.
Promise what? Promise what?
She stares at him, unable to believe her own eyes. She lowers herself and wraps her arm around Farbek. One last embrace. She buries her head against him and sobs. Sylvester joins her. In the quiet of the forest, the family embrace. The woods expand around them. There's silence. And in the woods later, the children sleep against their father. Sylvester struggles restlessly against his nightmares. Crack, crack. Alka wakes. Crack, crack. Someone in the distance cries.
Silver, wake up.
Sylvester doesn't respond. His night terrors have control of him.
Please, no. Why are you doing this?
Alka peers around the tree to see a man, Petrick, running through the trees, looking over his shoulder. He stumbles and lands on his face. He quickly gets up, mud splattered, but keeps running. A group of armed men hunt after him, taunting him. Finally, Sylvester wakes. He doesn't say a word, but looks up to Alka, her attention fixed on the men approaching. The men toil with Petrick. Clearly hurt, he tries to get away. Before he gets far, a beast of a man, Henrik, steps up to him and kicks him in the gut. The men laugh. Petrick screams and falls to the floor. Face down in the mud, Henrik comes to him again. Alka reaches down for a rock at her side. Henrik unleashes his blade, raises it above his head, ready to bring it down, but stops.
Kashmir, come here.
Silver, wake up. Get ready to run.
She comes away from the tree and looks at Sylvester. No Sylvester.
Silver?
Henrik lowers the sword and a young man, Kashmir, emerges from the rest.
Yes, Father.
Henrik hands the sword to his son.
You do it.
Kashmir hesitates but reluctantly accepts it. He approaches a crying Petrick and raises the sword. He looks up briefly and pauses as something catches his eye.
A boy?
Everyone looks over at Sylvester, who stands completely out in the open. From behind a tree, Alka tries to get his attention.
Silver, what are you doing? Come back.
Kashmir lowers the sword. Petrick looks over, also in disbelief. Henrik turns to Sylvester.
What are you staring at? Frederick, Tuck, grab him.
No.
Frederick and Tuck approach Sylvester. He stands his ground. Alka picks a direction. She sways back and forth, counting. Down. 1, 2. Closes her eyes and takes a deep breath. 3. She jumps out, screams at the two men and tries to pull Sylvester away. With all his strength, Sylvester refuses. She lets go. Her gaze meets Henrik. His intense stare and corrupt grin freeze her to the core. She grips to the rock in her hand and hurls it at Henrik. It lands to his side. She looks at Sylvester and bolts the other way. Both men steer away from Sylvester and charge after her. She gives it everything she has. Trees flash by, Fred and Tuck shout, but she doesn't look back. Next scene's in the wood, continuous. Henrik turns back to Sylvester with thick feet. He stomps closer to the small boy. Sylvester can't help but cry as the man approaches. Henrik towers over Sylvester.
I remember you. You're from that shithole on the river.
Sylvester wipes the tears from his face.
Your mother screamed your name as I cut her throat. Then you disappeared like the pair of rats you are.
Sylvester stands there, defiant. Henrik turns and walks to Fabric's body. He kneels and faces the lifeless man.
Pathetic.
Alka keeps running. She scans around for something, anything, that can help. Tuck slows down and stops to catch his breath.
Ugh,
With a cramp in his side, Tuck goes down.
too fast. I'll just wait here.
With one last heaving breath, he drops himself on his ass. Frederick speeds ahead. He gains on Alka.
Get back here, girl!
She keeps up the pace and scrambles through her bag for a weapon. She leaps over a fallen tree. Frederick jumps, and as he slows on landing, she turns and throws a small stone object at him. He comes after her and lands on top of her. She screams and tries to crawl off him. Alka swings her bag and hits him in the face. The man shouts in pain but grabs the bag and throws it away. Alka tries to crawl. He grabs her by the dress and pulls her back. She turns over and kicks him in the face. And as she kicks and screams, she quickly notices a small knife in the contents of her bag. She gets in a good kick. She lets go but grabs the end of her scarf. He stretches enough to grab the knife. Suddenly, with a handful of dirt, she flings it into his eyes and cuts the scarf. He pulls back with a scream, frantically wiping the sand from his eyes. Alka gets up and bolts. Knife in hand and heavy breathing, her feet move faster than ever before. Exterior, in the woods, it's a Sylvester moment. Henrik, Kashmir, and the rest of the men continue their march. Sylvester is tugged along by a rope attached to Henrik's belt. A few more captive villagers are pulled along, with Petrick tied up at the back of the chain. Petrick looks over his shoulder, the woods behind him. A labyrinth of trees offer no solution. Now we're at the Alka moment. Frederick scans the area. Behind a tree, Alka tries to settle her heaving chest. She struggles to control her breathing. He comes very close. She slowly circles the tree to stay out of sight, keeping her movements as smooth as possible. His feet rustle the leaves on the ground. She listens carefully and steps around. He starts to move away. She gets away from the tree and quietly goes to another. She ducks behind just as he turns his head. He turns away and continues his search. Alka takes a deep breath. She's safe for now. Seen in the woods, a Sylvester moment. The Crusaders move along with Henrik, leading the way. He looks back at Sylvester and then to Kashmir. He waves him over and pulls him in with one arm embrace.
Are you sure you're up for this?
Yes, Father, I'm trying. I'm sorry, I'm trying.
Back in the village, you froze.
Kashmir's afraid to answer.
It is my job to lead us in this holy mission. These pagan rats have destroyed the lands well before we arrived. You do see that, don't you?
Sylvester tugs along, listening in. Kashmir and Henrik look back at him.
Maybe a baby rat.
Henrik grabs Kashmir by the back of the neck and gets in close.
Can't have you hesitating anymore. My men look to me for guidance. You're an extension of me and I won't run out for weakness.
Yes, sir.
So,
Frederick pushes through the group and stumbles up to Henrik.
I see you're wrong. Where's the girl?
Apologies. She's good. She got away.
Sylvester smiles. Tuck, completely out of breath, wheezes up through the ranks.
The day started fine, but now all I see are disappointments.
You want us to go after her?
What's the point? Useless wholesome like you? We keep moving. She's just a girl. Won't last out here on her own. She'll be dead by morning.
Sylvester hears and stops walking.
Come on, rats!
Henrik gives Sylvester a violent tug forward. Alka moment in the woods. Amongst the towering trees, Alka walks along the forest floor, lost. Every direction looks the same.
Silver, where are you?
She looks up at the sky through the trees, one foot in front of the other. She lowers her gaze and stops in her tracks. In the distance, against a tree, sits Varbek's body. Alka's lips begin to quiver. Trance-like, her feet step forward. The closer she gets, the harder it is to hold in her pain. She reaches him and drops to her knees.
I'm so sorry, Pa. It's over. Silver's gone and I'm alone.
The wind whispers through the trees around her.
Why did you have to go? Why did you leave us? I can't do it.
She slumps down. Then, out of nowhere, she hits him. She hits him again. And again. Then, rapid fire. She batters him over and over. She stops and slumps down even further. A tear hits her hand and she sits in silence. Alka wipes the tears from her eyes.
Okay.
She looks at him.
I'll find Silver. I'll find him and we'll make it through this.
She takes his hand in hers.
We're going to be okay. I promise.
She takes a deep breath, stands up, turns away, and sets off in search of her brother. Scene 11 in the woods, a Petric moment. The chain of captives stumbles through the woods. Petric, still at the back of the chain, looks around, then down at his bonds. He tests its strength and tries to pull free, slightly loose. He looks at the men around him as he awkwardly but discreetly removes a pendant from around his neck. A man looks his way, his bound hands dart back down. As the man continues to stare, Petric raises his hand again to scratch an itch on his cheek. The man turns away and Petric slides the pendant from his hand and starts gently working away at the rope on his wrists. Exterior scene 12 in the woods, a Sylvester moment. Henrik walks strong and tall, demanding fear and respect. His men keep their distance. He pulls out some jerky and tears off a piece with his teeth.
Too good for a rat like you.
Sylvester doesn't acknowledge him, but his stomach does. It rumbles with a loud growl. Henrik hands a piece down to Sylvester. The boy sees it, but doesn't acknowledge.
Take it, rat. You're lucky I even look at you.
Henrik takes it back with a chuckle and chomps it all down in one bite.
My own men are scared of me, but not you, rat.
Sylvester moves into a slight limp, but tries to ignore it. Henrik watches the boy walk in silence. Henrik looks up to the sky as dark clouds hide it from view. Scene 13, exterior in the woods. It's an Alka moment. Alka scans the ground for tracks as she scurries along. She loses the tracks for a moment, but finds them again. Everything gets darker as rain clouds hover over the forest canopy.
No, no, no!
Rain begins to sprinkle around her. She brings her scarf up to fully cover her head. The rain steadily intensifies and the tracks wash away.
Oh, please, no!
Scene 14, exterior in the woods. It's a Sylvester moment. Henrik prays as he sits under a temporary shelter. The captives sit huddled together against a tree with no protection from the elements. Sylvester stands by Henrik's shelter. Battered by the rain, he cries but stands his ground. One of the captives, Christoph, looks at the other villagers and picks up the torn end of their rope. In the woods, a Petric moment. Petric, hands bound, runs as fast as he can, constantly looking over his shoulder. The rain pounds down around him. In the woods, there's an Alka moment. Alka hurtles through the trees in the other direction in search of cover. She struggles to see through the heavy rain. Bam! Alka and Petric collide and tumble to the ground. Petric and Alka both get to their feet as fast as they can, ready to defend themselves.
Leave me alone!
Alka gets ready to run.
Wait, I'm not one of them. You're that girl. You're still alive.
Deafening rain continues to bucket down around them.
Who are you?
You and your brother saved my life.
He falls to his knees and embraces her. Alka, unsure, hugs him back.
Wait, you know my brother? You know where he is?
Your brother is gone. You'll never get to him now.
So he's alive? Where is he? I need to find him.
No, didn't you hear me? I have him. He's gone. You'll never see him again. The only chance is to come with me. We need to get far away from those monsters.
I'm not leaving my brother. Please, help me find him.
He looks back the way he came.
I have him, girl. Listen to reason. You need to come with me. A little girl can't survive out here alone.
You're wasting my time. I need to go.
She launches past him and disappears through the rain. Petric, shocked, helpless, watches her go by.
You're crazy.
Her feet stomp through the mud and sludge. Her steps become harder. Alka falls and lands in a large mud puddle. Sylvester moment. Sylvester sits, curled in a ball, covered with his coat. His rope pulls taut.
Up.
The captives still huddle together.
Why haven't they killed us yet? What are they waiting for?
An old woman, Julia, removes her hood.
I have a plan.
Christoph removes a small turquoise scarf from his pocket. He unwraps it and reveals a bound piece of wolfsbane. A young woman, Alexandra, quickly wraps it up and pushes it back down.
Are you mad? Put that away. What do you plan on doing with it?
One touch of this, and in a few days anyone would go down. Get it into his supper, and we'll be rid of him.
Or you get caught, and they cut you down.
Get up, dogs.
The group, startled, comes to attention. Julia, in pain, holds one Christoph as she struggles to get up.
Move it, hag.
He steps forward, but Christoph jumps between them.
Leave her alone. She just needs help.
Kashmir punches him in the stomach and Christoph goes down.
Don't tell me what to do, dog.
He spits at him and Alexandra screams.
Stop!
What's going on?
Henrik, while Sylvester in tow, storms over.
Get these pagans on their feet!
Please. My sister is hurt. She just needs help.
Christoph climbs back up and shields her from the men.
Is this dog slowing us down?
I'm sorry, sir. It won't happen again.
Henrik walks to Kashmir and offers him a dagger.
Then take care of it.
She's just an old woman.
Kazmir, do it.
I can't.
He holds it in place for a moment, then withdraws.
You're no son of mine.
Henrik walks up, grabs Christoph by the back of the neck, and drags a knife across his throat. Blood squirts up at Henrik's face. Alexandra drops to her knees, screaming and crying.
How can your god condone such barbaric behavior?
I am God's right hand. I'm here to do what needs to be done. We are here to purge any false idols and see this country reborn. Your ancestors corrupted these lands with their pagan ways.
Our ancestors made these lands what they are today.
Look around. Your home is mine. If I've done wrong by the Lord's will, I pray I'm struck down.
You have no true faith. You're a monster in a man's skin.
No faith? The day I lose my faith is the day I cut my own beating heart. Get them up! We'll make for lost time before nightfall.
Alexandra cries. Julia embraces her while her other hand slips into Christoph's coat and removes the turquoise scarf. Henrik looks at Kashmir briefly and moves on. Sylvester watches as Henrik sticks his knife back into its sheath. He takes off a horn from his belt and fills the air. Exterior in the woods, Alka moment. The horn peters off in the distance. Water drips from a makeshift shelter made from Alka's coat and scarf. No movement, no sound, nothing but drips. Something rustles, and rustles some more. A hand shoots out and clutches the ground. Alka drags herself out. She's survived and emerges exhausted. The horn sounds again.
Silva!
She launches onto her feet and takes off to save her brother. We're now in the woods. It's evening time at Sylvester moment. Sylvester, Misrule, pulls along. He looks back over his shoulder, longing to go back. It's now evening. It's an Alka moment. Alka flashes through the trees as fast as her legs take her. She looks up and sees the sky grow dark. It's now sunset in the woods.
Christoph was right.
What are you saying?
We must bring down the beast.
You're right. You'll end up just like Christoph.
We do it careful. We do it smart.
Who can get close enough to do it?
Julia turns her gaze to Sylvester, walking behind Henrik with a tug on his rope to keep up the pace.
The sun is quite low. Shall we stop and set up camp?
Is your legs going weak? You need me to carry you?
I just thought, the men, we've had a successful day. In a single morning we've cleared many pagan towns. The men should celebrate this victory.
We've had no victory until the corrupted pagan plague has been scoured from the earth.
He looks at his weary men falter along.
A bunch of runts who can hardly last a day through the woods. Fine. We'll leave first thing in the morning.
He blows his horn. Now, scene 22 in the woods, an Alka moment. Alka immediately ducks. The horn is not far off. She slows her pace but continues towards the sound. It's night time now. Sylvester, tied to a post alone, huddles in a ball on the ground. Sylvester opens his eyes. He doesn't move.
Boy.
He looks up and over his shoulder. Julie and the captives sit not too far away.
Are you okay, my child?
Sylvester looks at her but doesn't respond.
Come closer.
I have something... Oh, sorry.
I have something for you.
He hesitantly pushes himself up. Another quick check. Henrik is nowhere to be seen.
Please, come. We need your help. I have something I need to give you.
He shifts the rope out of the way and gets to his feet. Sylvester steps forward, one slow step at a time.
That's it. Good boy. Has he hurt you?
He looks at the ground.
I heard what he said before about your mother. I'm sorry. He's a bad man.
He looks up at her and gently nods his head.
That's why we need your help.
How?
We need you to put something in his food. It will make him sick, and he won't bother us anymore.
Henrik's laughter from a distance fills the air, so Esther withdraws.
No, boy, please. Here, take it.
She unwraps a cloth with the wolf's bane.
It's very important that you do not touch it. When you're with him, you need to find a way to get it into his supper. Please, will you do this for us? If he makes it out of the woods, many others will suffer.
The boy turns his gaze to the big brute as he shows off his strength to his men. It's night time in the woods. Alka stays low and moves along, careful not to make a sound. Her head peers over a fallen tree. She ducks back down as the man wanders past. As he leaves, she emerges and creeps towards the drunken chaos that is the Crusader camp. It's night time at the camp. She creeps through the men as the men chuckle and drink. Others laugh and banter as they get off their feet. Alka creeps closer and searches the ranks for her brother. A pot sits over a fire. A big spoon swirls the mixture around. Henrik dips a finger into the stew. It's clearly hot, but he doesn't react and simply takes it out again and sips it from his finger. So Esther sits and watches every move. The turquoise scarf droops from his pocket and he stares at the pot of stew. Watching for the perfect time to strike, Henrik sees Sylvester stare.
I already offered you food today. This time you stay hungry.
Sylvester stares as Henrik sits down.
Quit looking at me, rat.
Sylvester's gaze moves down to Henrik's unique life on his belt. Henrik's eyes follow.
You wish I was dead, don't you? Do you think you could do it?
Sylvester looks up at him. He takes out the jeweled knife and holds it out of his palm. A glorious thing, a silver blade in the shape of a cross with rubies embedded into it. Its hilt. Nighttime. One man stumbles drunk, enemies everywhere. Alka's heart races. Distracted by the glow of the fire, none of them see her. Her small figure helps her sneak through small spaces. The shadows are her friend. One crusader comes dangerously close. She tries to move, but unaware, he stands on her dress. A squeal almost escapes, but she holds it in.
Come on, boy.
Her eyes widen as she recognizes Henrik's voice, the crusader on her dress.
Christ almighty.
He gets up and tries to wipe it off. He stumbles away and Alka breathes a sigh of relief. She creeps forward and peers around a makeshift tent to see Henrik, eerily close to Sylvester, handing the boy a knife.
Take it.
Sylvester's hand moves away from the turquoise scarf. Henrik turns his head and Alka backs away fast. Bam! She walks right into Tuck. Sylvester reaches for the knife. Henrik snatches the boy's hand, grasps the knife, raises it up, ready to bring it down through Sylvester's hand. He tries to pull free. Henrik stabs down. There's a scream. The knife stops mid-air. Alka's scream fills the air. Henrik gets to his feet.
What's all the noise?
As Henrik moves away, Sylvester looks at the stew. He grabs the turquoise scarf towards it as Henrik leaves. Alka screams.
Alka!
Frederick drags her into the open and throws her down. She looks over at her brother.
Silver!
She rolls over and pulls away from Frederick. Henrik blocks her again.
Good job, boys. You found the other rat.
Frederick grabs Alka by the arm and pulls her up. Henrik grabs her other arm and tries to take her. Frederick holds and Henrik stares him down until he lets go. Sylvester drops the turquoise staff and runs to Alka, darting past Henrik as he dives into Alka's arms. Kashmir walks up and looks down at the scarf and then up to his father. Alka hugs her brother but keeps her eyes on Henrik as she approaches.
So, the girl lives.
He throws a disappointed glance at Frederick.
Leave her alone!
The rat speaks.
Henrik bursts into a deep roaring laughter.
You survive the woods on your own. And you do what? You come here. What a stupid girl!
I'm sorry. Please, let me go.
She looks down at the knife on his belt. She quickly reaches for it and grabs the handle. Henrik grabs her arm. Again, he roars with laughter.
What is it with you rats? Didn't your father ever teach you? No. That's right. Your father was weak.
Alka spits at him. He closes his eyes and swallows a bout of anger. Fuming, he backhands her across the face, grabs her by the shirt and drags her to Sylvester. He grabs the boy and pulls them across, throwing them down with the other captives. Henrik pulls out his knife and severs Sylvester's rope. He starts to walk away.
You're a monster. And your God is a monster just like you if he condones such horrors as you've committed.
How dare you! I am to carry out his will. For this purpose the Son of Man was made manifest, that he might destroy the works of the devil. Tie them off with the wrist. I'm done with them. At dawn the pagans burn!
He walks away and stabs his knife into the top of the wooden post. Frederick goes to Alka and Sylvester and ties them to the chain of captured peasants.
This is not over between you and me.
Frederick walks away as Alka looks up to the silver knife. She holds her brother tight.
We're together now. That's what matters.
Later in the camp, the villagers sleep huddled together, as comfortable as their restraints allow. A ruffling sound comes from nearby. Alka sleeps next to her brother. Something jerks her slightly. As soon as her eyes open, a hand covers her mouth, muffling an imminent scream. Frederick hovers over her with a knife.
Don't make a sound, or I'll stick this in your brother's gut.
She looks at Sylvester, sleeping and underwear. Frederick moves his hand and she stays quiet. He cuts her restraints, throws her over his shoulder, and runs off into the wood. It's nighttime.
Please don't do this. I don't know what you want, but please take me back to my brother.
He sits down against a tree as she cries. He walks around a tree and brings the other end of the rope back to her, tying it off. Alka looks to the left, footsteps getting faster and faster. Frederick starts undoing his pants. Bam! Someone emerges from the dark and tackles him to the ground. Petrick and Frederick struggle. Petrick tries to pin him down but fails. Frederick gets the advantage. He grabs a large stick and goes to attack, missing Petrick's head. He swings again, cracking into Petrick's leg. He screams in pain. Alka kicks Frederick. He yells, backhands her, and Petrick gets on top of him. Frederick gets the advantage. He grabs a large stick and goes to attack, missing Petrick's head. He swings again, cracking into Petrick's leg. He screams in pain. Alka kicks Frederick. He yells, backhands her, and Petrick gets on top of him. He pins him down and gets his arm around his neck. Squeeze. Frederick tries to claw him off. Petrick fumbles his limbs enough to wrap around him. Frederick frees an arm and elbows Petrick in the face. Petrick releases and cries out. Frederick reaches for his blunt weapon. Alka quickly reaches her leg out and kicks it away. Petrick gets on top of him and wraps his arm around his neck once more. Frederick weakens, but Petrick tightens. He struggles to breathe and his eyes close. He kicks and claws, but to no avail. Petrick keeps going when Alka sees a tear roll down his cheek.
Don't kill him.
Petrick keeps his hold on Frederick, but snaps out of the shock of what he's doing. His lip quivers. He wants to stop, but can't.
Please don't kill him. Don't become one of them.
Petrick looks down. He doesn't know what to do. Frederick passes out and Petrick lets go. He pushes the man off him and drags himself away. He takes heavy breaths and wipes the tears from his face. Petrick turns to Alka.
Why are you here? How did you find me?
You're just a girl. What kind of man would I be if I left you alone?
He unties her and they fall into an embrace. They cry together.
You went after them, all for your brother.
I don't even know you.
I had to do it. Let me help you find your brother.
Silver, I need to go back for him.
She starts to run, but turns back to see Petrick standing behind her. He coughs up blood and drops to his knees with a knife in his back. Frederick! Alka screams and runs. Petrick grabs Frederick's ankle to slow him down. Alka gets away, but soon falls into a large puddle of mud. She crawls and drags herself through it when Frederick kicks free of Petrick's grip. Alka hears him coming and digs herself further into the mud. Now fully submerged, Frederick runs past, oblivious.
No! Not again! Where are you, you little pagan bitch?
Now stressed, he runs off back to camp. Alka's head bursts out from the dirt, gasping for air. She pulls herself along the mud and drags herself out and up onto her feet. She looks up as mud drips from her hair with a new fibre in her eyes. It's dawn at the camp. Frederick staggers through a bevy of unconscious crusaders. The sun gleams off of Henrik's knife, still stuck into the top of the wooden post. Sylvester wakes and sees Frederick storm past. He looks at the villagers, but no Alka.
Alka?
The other peasants stir. Tuck sleeps against a broken barrel. His hands drop and land in a muddy footprint. He opens his eyes and looks down to see a series of muddy steps going through the camp. Frederick reaches Henrik.
Sir, the girl, she got away.
What?
Frederick watches as Henrik struggles onto his feet. Henrik, pale, stands up straight and stares at him. He grips under Frederick for support and coughs. He pushes himself up to see a pool of blood in his hands.
They tied her up. How did she get free?
I just...
You just what?
Henrik sees Frederick's pants still undone. His giant hand grips onto the smaller man's throat. With his other fist, Henrik bashes Frederick in the face and throws him to the ground. Henrik breaks into a coughing fit. More blood. He ignores it, gathers himself and comes back to Frederick.
You weak, pathetic waste of a man! You go against my word! All I see is weakness.
He tries to ignore his sickness and kicks Frederick in the gut, sending him back to the ground. He stands over him, turns over him, and pummels him over and over. He stops, catches his breath, and steps away. He walks over to a large rock, picks it up like it's nothing, then stands over Frederick again.
You are not worthy.
Frederick brings the rock over his head and slams it back down. Bam! Blood splatters onto his face. He loves it. The other crusaders watch on, afraid in more ways than one. He steps back, not even attempting to wipe the blood away. He looks around at his men, then his gaze stops.
Where's my knife?
Over at the wooden post, the knife is gone. He walks over and pushes through his men.
Where are they? Where are the pagans?
A severed rope lay in the villager's stead. We're in the woods, an Alka moment. Alka holds Sylvester's hand and pulls him along. The other villagers move as fast as they can. Julia, with a bad ankle, slows him down. Alka hears Henrik's roar from afar.
Kill them!
She looks back at Julia.
We can make it. Keep going.
The others try to help, but Julia falls.
Please, get up. We'll be okay.
I'm sorry, child. You've done all you can, but it's hopeless.
I promised.
Julia looks around and back to Alka.
We can't, but maybe you can.
Alexandra gives Alka a regretful but accepting nod.
We will run this way. You run the other way. Keep going. It's not far to the edge of the forest.
Oh, I got you out. We all need to go together.
It's okay. Go.
Julia and the other villagers move away and continue their run. Alka pauses, not sure how to feel. The roar of the crusaders gets louder.
Alka, come on.
She jumps up and they both run faster than they've ever run before. Henrik, half dead, rages forward with everything he has. As he runs, his gaze strays fixed on Alka. The other crusaders break off after the villagers. Henrik stays on path after the kids.
Go get them. The rats are mine.
As his men move away, Kashmir stops and watches his enraged father. The kids run, but he still manages to gain on them. Alka and Sylvester see the light of the morning sun shining through the edge of the forest. Sylvester trips and falls. Alka screams.
No!
She watches Henrik storm toward them, fixated. He gives a violent cough as he runs. She grabs Henrik's knife and stands up to face him.
Alka, what are you doing?
We can't run anymore.
Alka, Let's go.
It has to end.
Henrik breaks into another coughing fit, stumbling to the ground. He gets up as fast as he can to face her. He sees her standing her ground.
Two brave little rats. Put down the knife, girl. It's over.
Stay where you are. Stay away from us, you monster!
He coughs and laughs simultaneously, then catches his breath. Henrik draws nearer. Alka sticks the knife out.
Don't be a fool, girl. Give me my knife and I make it quick. Painless.
Blood drips from his lip. Alka pushes Sylvester behind her without taking her eyes off Henrik. Henrik reaches for his sword. As he starts to slide it out from its sheath, his arm weakens and he drops it back down. Kashmir watches from a distance. He takes out the turquoise scarf and drops it to the ground. Henrik gives one big, violent cough and falls to his knees. Alka lowers her guard, suddenly no longer afraid of this man. She watches him grow weaker by the second. She walks into arms, reach, but he doesn't go for her. His eyes start to glaze over.
You can't kill me. You're weak. You're just a girl.
I was wrong. You're not a monster. You're just a man.
She stabs his own knife deep into his heart. He stutters, shudders, grabs her arm, and with a weak grip, she stares into his eyes as his life drains away. His grip releases and he falls to the ground. Alka, shaking, takes in what has just happened. A twig breaks. Kashmir approach attracts her attention. She keeps Sylvester behind her now. Kashmir looks down at Sylvester, then back to Alka. He gives a slight nod, telling them to run. Alka pauses. Is it a trick? Alka and Sylvester turn away and run. They disappear through the bright light of the sun, leaving the forest behind. They survive.
Go.